We're now going to start the digital payments Facebook Live session.
Less, and sometimes we say this is up to the markets. So this is the panel. I myself and Peter Hielkema, I work here in the Netherlands at the Dutch Central Bank, and I'm going to moderate today and make sure that your answers are going to be, your questions are going to be answered. Is there someone who already wants to ask a first question? Shall I ask the first question first? I'll do. So, I'm just going to look at you and just let me know if you want to answer the question. So, let's go digital. You can pay with all kinds of digital products. Anyways, paying is important. We have some principles here, and one of the principles that I saw, and I'm a mom, and what I really liked here was that it says that if children have products they can pay, so if you have a card, or you have a bank account, or you have a wallet on your mobile, then it would be good if parents still can see what is happening with your account. In other words, your parents know what you're doing with your money. And that would be a good idea. Jason, that's what you wrote. Can you say something about that? Why do you think that's a good idea?
Sure. So first and foremost, the audience, most of the audience we're talking to are probably much more digitally savvy than this entire panel. So we do mean that with respect, right? So we were just laughing about Facebook and a couple of other things, but you guys you know what to do with this, and he sees things that I don't know what to do with. But when it does come to sort of this central question of my parents sort of watching, I don't want my parents knowing what I'm doing with our money. Well, when we talk about financial inclusion, when we talk about inclusion in general, all right, you need to remember from my company's perspective, we think of four things. First of all, there is financial inclusion, which means how do we get all parts of the population included within financial discussions, financial education, more importantly, financial access, right? And so that's digital inclusion, it's financial inclusion, sometimes it's even gender inclusion. There's certain societies where we need to sort of focus in on making sure women have access as well. And then there's digital inclusion, right? Because a lot of us live in a Western European environment, and everything now is done digitally. You know, I don't even carry a piece of plastic as a credit card anymore. You know, you want to see my credit card or my debit card? It sits on my phone, and there it is there. That's me. That's me in the virtual world. That's my digital self. I no longer even carry a wallet. This is my virtual wallet, right?
But now the question,
so,
is your mom actually...
No, she's not.
What is happening on that?
13-year-old has that same digital wallet, all right? But that was the point, right? So he doesn't carry a piece of plastic. He doesn't have cash. He has a smartphone, which many of you do in the room, and he has a debit card that is attached to his phone. And he's not comfortable with the fact that I get to sort of see all those transactions, right? So we have to have a dialogue, right? Because this is not about master, this is about me as the parent, right? So he's not comfortable knowing that I know what he bought for lunch. And I'll tell you the four things that he sort of does. He has an Uber account, he has an Amazon account, and he has a iTunes account. So he doesn't need cash for any of those things, right? Because basically he can survive on that, and then he uses the contactless components of his iPhone to sort of get around. But the good thing is, I've also had to establish a code of conduct with him where I won't monitor him and question him on everything. But from time to time when balances go a little too sharp, we have a dialogue, right?
I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to look around. So just as a check. Is there anyone who already has a mobile wallet on his or her cell phone? Op je mobieltje. Heb je daar een mobiele portemonnee al? No. Okay. Who has? Good. So, but it will happen. It will happen. And one day we will all, or at least many of us, probably will have a mobile wallet on our telephone, on our mobile phone, and pay with it. One step back. Who has a card? Who has a bank account with a card and can pay cards? Exactly. And who has an iTunes account? Yeah, I see everywhere. Who has a bank account and you can pay with your account and your mom or dad can actually see that what you're doing. So now I'm going to walk this way. So, do you think that's okay? It's three of you. You can decide who's going to answer this. But what I would like to know is how do you feel about having that account and then having your parents watching what you're doing with the account?
I don't have anything time for them.
Okay, and you're fine with it?
Yes.
You're fine. Okay. So and does your mom or dad sometimes say, I looked at your bank account today and I saw you were shopping in the city and you were buying a hamburger at the McDonald's or a milkshake or does she comment on how you spend your money? Oh, he can, but he never looks. Okay. And any of you any time have a dialogue with your discussion with your parents on what you spend?
No, never.
Okay. Yeah, then I can see that you don't mind. So I'm going to quickly walk around because I saw some things here. So who has parents that look and actually then also discuss what they saw?
My parents look at my bank account because if I buy food outside, then my parents going to say, you have food at home, why are you going to buy food outside? And that is fine.
And do you think do you mind that they do you think I wish they could see what I did, or are you fine with them still looking and having the discussion with you?
I wish they couldn't see what I did because they are asking too many questions about it.
Thank you. You sound like me when I was 15. Very good. So I'm looking at Anna or Flora. Do you want to say something about? Do you think it's important that parents can see and then discuss? What do you think?
Well, it's difficult to say. I think some high level or like monitoring of what's happening is probably necessary for your protection actually, but at the same time too much monitoring is probably also counterproductive in a sense. We see from the data and evidence that we have that if there is a dialogue between the parents and the children about how they spend money, how they save, this is actually very beneficial to the children. Now, on exactly looking at every small action on the money side that children are doing, this is probably another story. So, some kind of balance.
I can add my experience when I just made a card, debit card, banking card for my daughter when she was, I think, 11 or 12. And when started, she was excited about this card, and she's like adult already and can pay herself. But in Russia we have, SMS. You can get SMS on every transaction. So I put this SMS for my mobile phone, not your mobile phone. And first I checked every, her transaction, and then a friend of mine said, "Look, Mom, maybe you are too critical because I also wanted to check everything." But then I understood that it's not productive. It doesn't create more trust. But still, if I saw that something was, I thought that probably she should not buy hamburger, but maybe more healthy food, for example, I talked to her. But then, we started, and of course it depends on the family of the relations, but I started to talk her more, not like you should do this or you should do this, but just discuss it, how it, you have this amount of money, how you would like to spend them, what are your priorities. You can spend them all on some toys, but then you don't have something more important for you later on. So I think it's a process, but of course I agree with Baran and I agree with everybody, we as parents do it because we want you to be safe and we want, it's for your benefits, but how we do it and how, I think we don't need to do this micromanagement, and we need to trust our kids. But of course it's good to discuss with kids. In Russia, for example, we just made survey and we look how if parents speak with kids about money, and 70% of parents do not speak about money with kids. I think it's also maybe not wrong. I think we need to start to speak, but speak in a positive way. Do not make it negative. So that's my opinion.
So what we're actually saying, and maybe you want to add on it, what we're saying is it's good that youth and kids learn about saving and spending money, and that parents need to learn about what they then check and what they don't check, and also trust that you actually learn by doing, and maybe even sometimes make mistakes. You want to add to that?
I myself, I think it's very important to have the possibility for a very close dialogue between parents and kids on management of money. To learn how to manage money, it's quite difficult because when we are young, we all remember quite a long time ago when I was very young, you tend to buy things by impulse. We tend to spend by impulse. Then I think it's very important to have to give the opportunity to parents also to, I would say, to teach and to understand through their kids, to teach them on the right attitudes versus money. Because there's a need to start very early with kids discussing savings, discussing spending, and discussing that when we do not have money enough, maybe if you want to buy something, we may be later try to get credit and to get access to credit. Obviously it can be a good opportunity, it can be a good decision, but it's quite risky. Then it's very important to have the parents and kids very early with a very close dialogue on management of money, savings, credit, and be responsible on spending also. That's quite important.
Do we all know what we mean with what is meant when we say credit? What is credit?
It's your money on card, but it's like it's like your money on a card, but you can at the bank you can take your pinpass, your credit card, and you can give some money, and then you have money in your hand. But I don't know how to explain what credit.
Thank you for trying. And yes, it's money you can spend, but do you already have that money, or is it a loan? I think that's why we bring them. That's why we say you can save money, you can spend money, but you can also get credit. If you spend credit, you actually are spending money you don't own yet. So that's even more exciting when we look at it as parents than when you are spending money you already saved. See? So that's why credit is so part. Because on your mobile phone or in your mobile wallet, sometimes when you make a lot of phone calls and you send you don't make any phone calls, but you do use a lot of MB just to download the nice YouTube films, etc. Then at a certain stage you are out of money. But some contracts with mobile phones, you can just continue watching YouTube, but you start to actually get a debt. And so that is what can happen, and that is what we mean with credit. And if you use credit, you use money that you haven't earned yet. So Ernesto.
Yes. Yeah, ideally, I agree with you. I mean, this education should start home, but I'm afraid that's not the case almost all the way. So I think it's very important also that the state gets involved in this. I mean, how? By teaching very young people, primary school, I would say. Ideally in a compulsory way, that's very difficult. In my country we have this, but at the secondary level, secondary school level, which is compulsory. So I think education, of course, should start home, but also the state should, in a way, direct this education, because it's very difficult. There are many technical issues also in this financial education that probably should be taught at school.
Thank you. So what Ernesto is saying, you don't only want the children to talk about it, you don't only want the parents to discuss it with their children, but you also want teachers to discuss it at school. And what you're also saying is if the schools are not doing it, then actually the government should say that they should be talking about it. The good thing is that we are talking about it today, and anybody who wants to raise a question, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
My question is there still going, oh, I'm sorry. My question is there still going to be cash like banknotes in 50 years? Because over the time we use new technologies such as a phone.
Yeah. Good question. Good question. Jason, gonna look at you. The tech company, what do you think? Are we still going to use banknotes and coins, or is it just going to be mobile phones?
I knew I would get that answer first, but actually the more important question is to ask the central bankers what they say. So I'll tell you.
I will.
I'll tell you what our view is. So we do believe, and part of our business is to create a cashless environment. So where you can essentially not need to have cash in your pockets, right? But have the ease of use of access to your funds, whether it be money you've saved, or as we've just talked, credit, money you've borrowed, right? So technology will allow you to sort of actually operate in a world where, particularly in the next 5-10 years, where you don't need to have that cash, right? Think about taxis today. 5 years ago, you needed cash in your pocket for a taxi. Today, you don't, whether it's Uber, or whether it's a prepaid taxi, or you're just using your debit card when you go into that taxi. So we'll see more of that happen, I think, as things go up. Do I really believe we'll never have cash? I don't know. I don't think so. There still will be some use for cash, and that's what we need to hear from some of the people. Actually, that's their job. Because my job is to make sure that there is no cash in the economy, right? It's to make it more electronic, to give you the control to understand, well, where am I spending my money, and how easy can I spend my money when you choose to do it, right? But like all good things, the reason why we have parents is they love us, but they also teach us and bring discipline so we become smart adults as well. And you have to be smart in the way you use your financial products, your savings, your loans, just like you have to be smart when you become a driver, right? Because there's sort of obligations. You know, you get to save money, you get to use and spend it, but you know, that's a right, but the obligation is you have to do it in a good way. So I do think going forward, we're going to see less and less and more opportunity for what we call frictionless payments, where you're not even going to know you're paying for it. You're just going to click a button, right? It's already happening. If you use Amazon, iTunes, you just click a button. And so I think we'll see more of that. But I think it's a relevant question to hear from the panel. What do they think about in the next couple of generations?
Maria, you say no one else?
If we go back some centuries ago, we had stones as currency. We had different commodities as used as money. When I was young, we had mainly banknotes and coins. Then we started using plastic money, as used to say, these famous plastic cards, prepaid cards and others. Now we have money inside our smartphone, meaning we are getting digital. In future, I think we'll go more and more digital. We'll have digital currencies, digital money, more and more, because it's very convenient. It should be very safe. That's another topic that you need to address, because obviously you are thinking of it to be digital, but we need to be to work very hard on security procedures, cyber security. But if we, in future, will be able to tackle that challenge, the security challenge, and some components of precautionary procedures, I think we'll go digital. That's more or less inevitable. I'm not saying that we'll go virtual, meaning I'm not saying that we'll go through virtual currencies. We know already that we have virtual currencies around. But I'm trying to explain that we'll go digital, meaning that I'm not referring to virtual currencies, which for me it's completely different. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree, yes. I think it's very important, this issue, because for central bankers also it's going to be an alleviation of our economies, because I mean, using money costs a lot of money, because I mean, we have to produce, we have to hire the big companies that produce the money, the paper money, and I mean, with digital money, that cost would be erased. Another thing that is that transactions. Yes.
So did everybody get that money? This actual banknotes and coins, they cost money.
Yes.
It's cheaper, just simply cheaper to pay via mobile phone, because then we don't need to print banknotes, we don't have to have these armored cars that bring the banknotes into the banks, we don't have what we call plofkraken in Dutch, but it's the robbery of ATM machines. And so that's what you're saying, so that would be a plus,
Yes,
so it would be cheaper,
yes.
that's the plus.
That's one
Yeah.
point. The other thing is that in that case, money will be traceable. I mean, you can trace the money, and that's very important in the fight against money laundering, for instance, crime, etc. So to trace money would be the advisable thing to go or to do. And I think it's inevitable also.
So what you're saying is that with that tracing money, what we're saying is actually we can see who earns what, because it's all digital, so it's accessible. So who earned, what did you earn? Did you pay taxes or not? And should you? And I use to do things that are not very nice, like terrorism or criminal activities.
Yeah, but we switch.
That is harder when there's no cash. When you do that with cash, no one can see. If you do it digital, we can see. So that's what I'm saying. So that's another plus. It's better for taxes and crime, less crime.
But for that, we will have to amend our laws. So that's a small point.
Here's the problem. I knew there was a problem.
Yeah, a little problem, but I mean we can manage, because this is coming. I think it's Thank you.
Well, I actually want to say that, on my opinion, Jason, I'm sorry, that it's not up to central bankers to decide this question. It's actually up to you. Because I think it's, because central banks have to deal with the real world, real situation. So I think that more and more people use it, more and more central banks should also follow. So it's also, like, let's say, two sides game. So it's not just the central bank decide themselves, to do it or not to do. But just one example, in Russia we have now one bank who introduced in schools experiment that kids pay by just touching their hands on anything. I mean, not just without card, without mobile phone. Biometric identification. They don't need any cash, and it's safe that no other guys who are stronger can take the cash or whatever. So it's safe, and parents also can check, and parents can chat with them then how they use it, and it's also parents can see if they actually enter the school, because they use it when they enter the school, so it's all safety, and they use it. So if parents like it, if kids like it, if they continue to use it, it means other banks, other MasterCard or other payment system organization will introduce it more and more. So, on my opinion, it's also very important what consumers and future consumers, what you choose, what you select. If you think it's good for you, comfortable, it will grow fast.
So we have the tech company saying, sure, this is going to happen. There will be maybe a little bit of cash, but the future is digital. We have the central bank who's seeing a lot of benefits. It's less crime, more taxes, and less cost, so that's a plus. If there's also difficulty, we have to change laws, it takes a long time. But ultimately what Anna is saying is that it is up to the consumers. You are the consumers. You are going to use or not use digital products. So can you show hands? Who would mind? What would you mind if next week you can no longer pay with cash? No banknotes, no euros, nothing. Just raise hand. I mean, you say no. I'll just pay digital. That's it. No, no. So you all like cash. Can I ask you why?
I don't really carry cash. I always pay everything by card, so for me, it doesn't make a difference. I mean, if a shop doesn't accept cash, doesn't accept cards, sorry, for me it's a problem because I don't carry cash.
Okay, it's okay. Here we have one believer, and then there.
Yeah, that's typical German and come from the German central bank. I would object the statement that cashless payment doesn't cost any money. Of course, it costs also the same amount of money on average. Because you need to provide for security. There's also typical theft, so it does come at a cost. And also, I probably would mind. I probably would mind my parents to know about what I shop. I would also mind a company like MasterCard or any other company to know about every payment I make. I don't think companies or anybody with access to my bank account should know where I am. Let's say I buy a plane ticket to somewhere or a train ticket. I don't think it's not anybody's business to know where I'm going to buy food. So there are certainly parents who will think about if you pay, you go often to a pharmacy to buy medicine, then I do not want anybody to know about that.
Okay, so then you would mind is as of tomorrow you can no longer pay with cash. Yeah, and then but you're in good company because I don't think I saw we still like cash here in this room, don't we?
Yes.
Good. You raised an interesting point. It's a key point. It's about when you do everything digital and everything is visible, there's benefits, but there's also the question who's watching and who knows what. And the group of
Also security issues.
yes, and also security. So because you were there, can I ask you? You said I don't mind my parents watching. I don't mind. So are you Facebook? No. Why not? So you're on Instagram. Do you mind that everyone? Do you mind that you don't know exactly who knows what you do on Instagram? You don't. You still like it. Good. You want to comment on that?
If they know where you are, it should be no problem because for me it's no problem because I'm family type. But if it's criminal, then they know where he is.
It's actually good that you know where criminals are, and for you it's not a problem because you're not a criminal. That's what you say. Okay, good. That's an argument. And you mind. You said you do mind, and your parents are watching. Are you on anything like Instagram or Facebook? Do you use Google? You don't mind that then people know where you are.
I don't mind really, but except my brother, I don't want what I'm doing on social media.
But I think we do have an issue here. Who wants to comment? This is about privacy rules versus the convenience of paying a difference.
Yeah, this is probably one of the main issues with digitalization is that more or less everyone can watch what you're doing. So in a sense, it's very good that you are aware of this and that you don't necessarily share all kind of information on internet or on your social media, because it may have an influence on your future job, for example, because employers are actually looking at social media, and depending on what is happening there, may hire you or not hire you, for example. So always think about it. Do you want everybody to have access to this kind of information? Similarly, sharing information and about what you're doing can be used by financial institutions to provide you with a credit, as we said, money you don't already have, or refusing a credit. So again, information that can be used, your behavior online can be used by a range of people, to your benefit sometimes, and sometimes not necessarily to your benefit. So clearly it's an issue, but I know I have niece, not kids, and I know that they trust the system very much, and they don't care, actually, exactly your answer. They don't care at all. At the same time, you need to be aware there are potential risks. Trusting the system is probably a good thing for society. At the same time, understanding that it may have some impact on your future life.
Let me just add, I think this topic that Flora mentioned, it's a topic that in certain way I tried also to refer some time ago. And I think it's a very important topic, but it's not only related with money. It's related with the type of society in which we are now, and maybe we are afraid to move completely because we need to keep something for us on our own. And this is a broader issue. The privacy of data, big data, it's a very important issue on consumer protection. And not only related with money, but it's related, I would say, with everything.
I think back to the lady at the back, I think you registered you were with the German Central Bank. So those are very interesting points. And yes, there's a lot of data about this everywhere, right? And so payments is one thing. What you say on Facebook, what you download on YouTube, what you search on Google, you're creating a digital footprint wherever you go. And this is the societal thing I think you're sort of getting to. But around payments, the good thing is we have people like yourself, we have central bankers, we have regulators, politicians who represent your interests. And what they've done is they've made sure that as far as your bank is concerned, that information has to be protected and secure. So for instance, MasterCard doesn't know what you have spent at the pharmacy, right? Do I know that you've gone to a pharmacy? Yes. How do I use that data? Well, not against you, all right? So first and foremost, the bank... First and foremost, banks, there's a trust. Your parents trust the banks that they keep their money in. You probably, if you've got a savings account, you trust that bank, right? And so that's an entity which, you know, we need to sort of bear in mind. And actually, our country manager used a really good example this morning, talking about this. And he said, you know, when we talk about our parents and our parents overseeing, you know, what we spend, what we just talked about, you know, we trust our parents. Yes, they're going to ask us some difficult questions, but you know, they're not going to go and tell everything about us to our friends, our family, or brother. They're going to respect you. And in a way, there's a trust you have in your parents. That's where you need to think about banks. Banks protect you, right? Okay. Now, if you go to Google, all right, and you're downloading YouTube or you're doing searches, well, they're offering you a service which you think is free, but actually they still have to make money. So what do? They sell advertising or marketing to other companies to give you that free service. And your exchanges, I get a free video download, but they get to sort of put an advert next to you. So there's an exchange that's going on. You may not be aware of it, but that exchange is going on. And Google is like your neighbor. So when they hear something about you, they'll go and they'll sort of gossip. So you trust, and I'm not saying Google are like this, but the reality is there's more trust with your parents, there's more trust with the bank than some of these other digital platforms. And I think it is a societal question, right? And it comes down to what we do as consumers, because you're all consumers here, but more importantly, citizens, right?
Thank you. I just want to add, I think it's a societal question, but it's also a generation. Because, you know, for us who used to grow up and we were kids where there was no Facebook yet, and, you know, we got used to be more, to get more privacy. And I think for young people, I see my daughter, my niece, and other young people, they are more open for this digital world, know everything, where they go, what they do, with whom they meet, etc., etc. So I think it's different generation, and for us it's difficult to imagine it, that they were born like that already. But of course I agree that still my advice would be to, you know, to take into consideration that sometimes it can be you need to think about your privacy and about your safety when you are in the internet. Just one example, one young girl, she already works and she has some money, and people used, not good people, they used her profile. They learned that she has a sister, and they approached her as pretending that it's her sister is writing her on Facebook Messenger or whatever somewhere, and asking to send her money. That, oh sorry, I lost my card, etc., etc. Can you send me to this electronic wallet? And she even didn't check, so she sent money because they learned how she communicate with her friends, and they put some words, something which she saw, oh, it's really my sister. She didn't call her, she just sent money. And if she lost money, then we had to work on that to try to get back this money. So just one example. So I think it should be combination. Of course, world never will be like we had before the Facebook, but still we need to be careful.
Thank you. So, the good news is that there is a question, hopefully in the room, that will be very good news, but there's also a question from someone who's following us on the Facebook. So, Bianca?
Yeah. So there are actually a lot of questions. I'm going to ask 4 that we selected. So, one question is, on regulation. It comes from the National Bank of Macedonia. Different countries actually need different regulation when you are dealing with digital finance. So can you please share some experience from your countries? Then there's a question from Syria. Syrian citizen, as a Syrian citizen, I don't have access to any digital finance, anything. And I still want to be connected financially with the world. So what are the alternatives? Then a question from MasterCard is for MasterCard. I don't know if there's a question from MasterCard, but for MasterCard is, what is MasterCard's goal in the future? Is it to go 100% digital in some years? And finally, a question about people that cannot write and read, and they still use digital services, and they still need financial education. Can you give some examples of programs that deal with that? Thank you.
So, thank you. Great questions from our Facebook participants. And I'm going to start off with maybe the first question asked, because did you hear that it's actually a central bank from one country asking to share experience from central banks from other countries, and they're saying, like, how do you regulate, which means what kinds of rules do you make when it comes to digital inclusion. And the reason we are asking that each other as central banks is because this is new. And the reason why we discuss it today with you, why we are interested to be here, is we think it's important, but we also are facing a new world, and we hope, frankly, that you can help us also, because honestly, you're a lot more digital than at least I was at your age, and I probably still am. But maybe briefly, is there something when it comes to digital regulation focused on youth, in that as a regulator you can help?
In fact, it's focused on the system, the payment system. We have a law, now has like 5 years, and then we have regulation also in the central bank. We specifically deal with payment systems, and we authorize the operation of MPES, we call enterprises that deals with digital payments, e-wallets, etc. They are supervised by the central bank, and there are many regulations and clauses also regarding privacy, competition, etc. So I think it's a very modern legislation or regulation, I would say. So yes, of course now it's very active, all this activity in Paraguay, but we need to interoperate between the banks and the mobile phone companies, and we are trying to get to that regulation.
In terms of regulation, I'd like to add that in Portugal we have a comprehensive set of rules at national level, and also rules that are coming from the European Union authorities. They are very, very important, and they have a very broad scope of action in terms of putting all providers, payment providers, inside scope of supervisory authorities, as payment institutions or electronic payment institutions. And also in terms of the prudential authorities, banking prudential authorities and payments overseers, they are in charge of putting in place a very important set of rules. But we are more and more also looking at conduct of business regulation, conduct of business rules, meaning rules that protect consumers when they go digital. They use digital payments, or they use credit for mobiles or for online. And this set of rules are very important, first of all, to get security. In terms of payments, more and more we are, in Portugal at least, and Europe, I would say, in favor of strong customer authentication to allow those that go through online and mobile payments, they are at least as much as possible protected. Security is very important. And also, as regulators on conduct of business, we are more and more assessing the disclosure requirement rules, if they work through mobile, and also the oversight tools, if they work.
So what the other central banks are saying as examples, how do we deal with this? Also when you have to make laws. You can see this, if the central bank is the parent and the bank is the child, which is not the case, but just to keep it simple, then how are we going to make sure that the bank is not doing things they shouldn't be doing? And do we have the right, or do we trust that they can do that themselves? That's the question where as a central bank you're thinking about what are you going to do. And I think the examples we give is, first of all, we do want to at least have a look into what they are doing with all this new stuff, with the mobile wallets and all kinds of digital payments. We want to know that they're doing it, we want to know how they do it, we want to understand it. So we need to learn a lot. And then what we say is that one of the things we find key is that they are honest and open to those who are using it, so that you know what you are using, that you don't. I mean, that's a concern. If you have to scroll through a lot of conditions, you have to read and say, I agree, then you're just thinking, I want to buy it now, agree. And you have no clue what you agreed to. So that's one thing. The second thing is the example of your friend who paid. But how do you know you're paying? Who is paying? Can you pay easily? And that's why we say the authentication, which is a difficult word for how do you go to identify yourself? Is it just a code, or is it a fingerprint with a code, or is it a card with a code? And so we are going to look at how do you make sure that the identity of the person paying is actually the person who owns the money. I think that's one of the steps we are taking as well. Do you want to add?
Yeah, I wanted just to add a small thing, because it's asked by the Central Bank of Macedonia. Actually, we find internationally that one of the difficulties that regulation is different in different countries. And because digitalization means that you're here and you're buying a product in another country. So if the rules that apply in your country, here in Netherlands, are different from the rules that apply elsewhere, this is creating another kind of issue. So central bankers, private institutions needs to get together in order to protect you better in that sense.
So again, to the question to the Central Bank of Macedonia, I mean, one of the main reasons why we're here today with the CYFI is to actually talk about some principles that regulators can take into account. And earlier today, Queen Maxima actually received a report about safer payment products for minors, which is conducted with CYFI and incorporates many of the other principles like UNICEF's, the privacy for children and whatnot, right? So in some respects, there's a guideline. This is now available, if you can't access this information directly, let us know how to contact you via Facebook. We'll get this document to you. But these are some principles which will help underpin some of the notions in which regulators should think about how they drive regulation. And it's a cross-party type environment. So where MasterCard was one party of many that came to sort of bring that information to bear. We've talked about authentication, and that's an important thing because as this gentleman who asked the question about are we going to have current or cash in future years, the reality is we already have to sort of sign into a Facebook account, you've got to sign into an Amazon account. It's going to be important that, to your point earlier, we know that it is you, right? That it's you who's transacting, that you know that it is actually your sister on the other side. So this is where Europe is actually leading the world in regards to this. And we're one part as a company of how that technology can come to bear. Certainly Facebook and Google, they all have their own other components. And this is what the role of some of the regulators do. They sort of say, this is the frame. One of those aspects is contained. So there you go.
And so that is all that is how we think about how to still be in a safe world even though you are in a digital world. Not only paying, that's what I'm saying, it's paying, it's buying, it's actually sharing your resume or your profile or frankly just fun pictures. It's something we have to think about. But then there's also people who do not feel included or simply are not included financially because through Facebook, so that was successful. And we have the question from Syria who does have access to Facebook but no access to digital finance. And then there's the fourth question where they said if you can't read, if you have difficulty reading, then how are you going to ever be digital? Because you need to have some capability of being able to read. And that can be because you didn't learn to read. It can also be simply because you're blind. So there's some people that maybe not have access for good reasons, and can we help that? Both on the technology side, how do you get financially included if you can actually include through Facebook? And are there any programs that support getting access if you can't do?
Well, I know that there are many examples of good practices, especially in Europe. We are still behind in Russia, but we develop now special financial literacy program even for kids who are blind or who have limited capabilities in that, and we teach them special techniques. And we also try now one of our main banks start now to develop technologies that blind people can use it, because yes, still we have more than 1 million people who are blind in Russia and they don't have proper financial access. So we work on that together. We teach them in different ways with different techniques, and banks start now to implement. Just recently it was big debate in Russia. Our CEO of one of the biggest banks, he put himself this special, special suit, special glasses, everything special on himself, and tested. He came to his bank and tested if he could read anything, if he could, and the people who work there, they started to explain him this. They explained to people who can't see, and he said, actually, I can't hear you, I don't see anything, and you don't understand. So he put it on this person. It's very important that and they train now all people who work with consumers, with customers, because it's very important to understand that we have different capabilities in that, and that other people might not have the same access physically. So it started more and more in Russia. It's just one example how we work on that.
Yeah, thank you. I just would like to focus on technology, taking the question from our Syrian friend. Actually, the beauty with technology is that you can build identity apparently for only taking pictures. And I know of a fintech that has actually developed a region that are in difficulty, whereby the refugee or the person without financial access can make pictures and then get access actually to a bank account from abroad. So this is working. This is the beauty of technology and innovation. Second part is more about people that have difficulty reading. Of course, digital means can also mean pictures. So you can show risk by for example, using red colors. So if a product is risky, it will be red. If the product is safe, it will be green. So there are ways to use digital means and pictures in a different way, so that different kind of people with different competency can access finance.
Yes, I wanted to say that in my country, in Paraguay, we have a special secretariat, like a minister, that deals with impaired or special disabilities persons or people.